When a sitting member of Congress gets indicted for doing her job, it raises one brutal question: has America's justice system been hijacked? Representative McIver wasn't breaking the law. She was carrying out her constitutional duty of oversight, something the Supreme Court has said is central to democracy itself. Yet Trump's Department of Justice charged her with assault. That's not law and order, that's revenge. And it's part of a larger pattern where violent rioters are pardoned, police officers are ignored, and corruption is rewarded. What happened here isn't just outrageous, it's dangerous.
Mr. Raskin for his opening statement.
Thank you kindly, Chairman Van Drew, and for your opening statement. This week's events show how MAGA has turned American justice completely upside down and inside out. Over the last week, we've been talking about a single rogue DOJ employee who unilaterally canceled more than $500 million in Department of Justice grants to local law enforcement and victims' rights organizations and those assisting the victims of rape and sexual assault across the country. That's what right-wing policies do. I would say to my friend, the chair of the full committee, we tried to restore that money. Nobody seemed to know how any of this happened, but our colleagues didn't utter a word against our amendment, and yet they all voted against it. What else happened? Well, a 33-year-old January 6 rioter who assaulted our police officers at the Capitol, and he smashed the glass pane through which Ashley Babbitt climbed before she was fatally shot by a Capitol officer, was arrested again yesterday. This time they got him for burglarizing neighbors' homes. This was a guy who was pardoned by President Trump, now robbing houses in Virginia. This Zachary Alam was serving an 8-year sentence after a jury convicted him of 7 criminal felonies and 3 misdemeanors when President Trump granted him clemency as part of the mass pardon of 1,600 insurrectionists and rioters for the thousands of crimes committed on that day. At sentencing, U.S. District Court Judge Friedrich described the testimony of police who recalled Alam as, quote, by far the loudest, most combative, and most violent of the January 6 rioters who attacked the police in the part of the Capitol that these officers were defending. And yesterday, the Trump Department of Justice agreed to pay nearly $5 million to the family of Ashley Babbitt, the rioter who tried to storm the House Speaker's lobby on January 6 after she broke into the Capitol and after the aforementioned Mr. Alam broke that window. The Department of Justice originally took the position that her wrongful death lawsuit brought by her family was wholly without merit, no basis, and that Babbitt's civil rights had never been violated by the police, and that the police officer acted reasonably in defense of members of Congress and in defense of Vice President Pence. A Capitol Police investigation cleared the officer involved, saying his actions at the height of the riot, quote, potentially saved members and staff from serious injury and possible death from a large crowd of rioters who had forced their way into the Capitol, into the House chamber, where members and staff were steps away. In 2023, then House Speaker Kevin McCarthy said, I think the police officer did his job. Now, although Trump's new attorney general is set to give $5 million to the rioter's family, Trump has not proposed to give a penny to the more than 140 police officers injured, wounded, hospitalized, disfigured, and or disabled in their violence, and nothing to their families. He's proposed no money payments to the bereaved family of Officer Brian Sicknick, an Army veteran with 2 tours abroad who died at age 42 here on January 7th, 2021, the very next day after being brutalized by rioters. The decision to give millions of dollars to the Babbitt family and nothing to the families of the police officers who defended this Capitol, who defended us, exacerbates the insult of Speaker Johnson's continuing refusal to hang a simple plaque in honor of the officers who defended the Capitol and the Congress and the Vice President, a plaque mandated by law and now more than 2 years overdue on the west front of the Capitol. The Speaker's stubborn refusal to respect the law is craven submission to the executive branch, to Donald Trump, who wants to pretend that the rampaging mob that he sent to Congress was made up of patriotic heroes and that the people he pardoned were, quote, hostages and, quote, political prisoners. A hostage is someone who's been illegally abducted by a terrorist group like Hamas and held for a financial or political ransom. A political prisoner is someone like Alexei Navalny or Nelson Mandela, who's been imprisoned for ideological reasons, not for violently assaulting the police or engaging in seditious conspiracy or destroying federal property. But the administration's effort to create big news yesterday was Trump's acting U.S. attorney in New Jersey, a blatantly partisan prosecutor who has bragged about working to turn New Jersey red. Well, she announced her intention to indict our colleague, Congresswoman LaMonica McIver, on charges of assaulting, resisting, and obstructing law enforcement based on the now famous May 9th incident outside of Delaney Hall, an ICE detention facility in McIver's district, where she was conducting a scheduled oversight visit with other members of Congress, including our 80-year-old colleague, Bonnie Watson-Coleman, and the mayor of Newark. Well, Delaney Hall is operated by the private prison company GEO, a major Republican donor that gave $1 million to Make America Great Again, Inc., and has faced numerous lawsuits for its treatment of detainees in unsafe conditions. The members had a lawful right to be there and to investigate, and even after ICE initiated a scuffle to arrest the mayor of Newark on public property, the House members were let in to tour the facility to conduct nonviolent oversight, and the tour went smoothly. This indictment is a manifest fraud, clearly designed to distract America this week from the administration's savage and unpopular effort to strip 14 million Americans of their Medicaid and health coverage and 11 million Americans of Head Start, Meals on Wheels, and other nutritional assistance programs like SNAP.
And Congressman Jamie Raskin isn't holding back. He just ripped the mask off MAGA's agenda in a way that could change everything. So let's talk about what really went down. Representative Mac McIver entered Delaney Hall, an ICE detention facility in her district, to conduct an official oversight visit. She wasn't alone. Other members of Congress, and even the mayor of Newark, were with her. Oversight visits like this aren't optional, they're a duty. They're how lawmakers see what's happening on the ground, how they figure out what laws need to be passed, and how they hold agencies accountable. The Supreme Court has repeatedly affirmed that oversight is at the heart of the legislative process. Without it, Congress can't do its job. And yet, for performing that duty, McIver is facing criminal charges. The DOJ is accusing her of assaulting and obstructing law enforcement. No officer was injured. No one died. No property was destroyed. But in Trump world, doing oversight is now considered a crime. The message is clear: if you challenge their system, you will be punished. If you expose what's happening behind closed doors, they'll come for you next. But this wasn't an isolated incident. It's part of a much darker pattern of MAGA twisting the justice system until it no longer resembles justice at all. Take what happened just last week. A single DOJ official, acting without debate or oversight, cut more than $500 million in funding. Gone. The money was meant for local law enforcement, for victims' rights organizations, for crisis centers helping survivors of sexual assault. $500 million wiped away by the stroke of a pen. And when Democrats tried to restore that funding, Republicans voted it down. Not one word of protest. Not one defense of the victims left stranded. That's what law and order has come to mean in MAGA politics. Defend power, abandon victims, defund real justice. And when it comes to who they actually defend, the hypocrisy gets even worse. Consider the case of Zachary Alam, a violent rioter on January 6. Alam smashed windows, screamed at officers, and was described by a judge as one of the most combative insurrectionists at the Capitol. He was convicted on multiple felonies and sentenced to 8 years. But then Trump stepped in. He pardoned him. And what happened next? Alam went right back to crime. Arrested again for burglarizing homes in Virginia. That's who MAGA defends: violent offenders who re-offend, criminals who prove time and again that they pose a danger to their communities. Meanwhile, the true heroes of January 6th, the Capitol police officers who stood between Congress and chaos, have been abandoned. More than 140 officers were injured, some permanently disabled, some traumatized for life. Officer Brian Sicknick, a military veteran, died the very next day after being brutalized during the attack. His family has received nothing, no compensation, no recognition, and Speaker Mike Johnson won't even allow a plaque to be placed at the Capitol in their honor, even though Congress voted it into law more than 2 years ago. That plaque is still missing, 2 years overdue. But Trump's DOJ is preparing to hand nearly $5 million in taxpayer money to the family of Ashley Babbitt, the woman who tried to breach the Speaker's lobby during the riot. Babbitt wasn't a martyr. She was part of a violent mob. The officer who shot her was cleared, his actions found justified and necessary to protect lawmakers and staff. Even Kevin McCarthy, no friend of Democrats, admitted that the officer did his job. But MAGA has rewritten the story. They call Babbitt a hero, and now they're cutting her family a check while ignoring the men and women who actually defended democracy. This isn't just a difference of opinion, it's a deliberate rewriting of history. MAGA leaders now call insurrectionists political prisoners and hostages. Congressman Raskin shut that down with brutal clarity. A hostage is someone kidnapped by terrorists. A political prisoner is someone like Nelson Mandela or Alexei Navalny, jailed for their beliefs. The rioters on January 6th, they weren't victims of oppression. They were violent offenders who smashed windows, attacked police, and tried to overturn an election. But in Trump's America, they're heroes. And members of Congress like Mac McIver, performing lawful oversight, are treated as criminals. This upside-down logic doesn't happen by accident. Trump has been actively reshaping the DOJ to serve his personal interests. More than a dozen senior prosecutors who worked on January 6 cases were fired, replaced with partisan loyalists, like one acting U.S. attorney in New Jersey who bragged about trying to turn the state red. It's not about justice, it's about vengeance, it's about rewarding loyalty and punishing dissent. The indictment of McIver didn't come out of nowhere, it came right as the administration was under fire for stripping millions of Americans of Medicaid, Meals on Wheels, Head Start and SNAP benefits. It's a distraction, pure and simple. Throw an indictment at a Democrat, shift the headlines, and hope no one notices the cruelty of their policies. But here's the thing, people are noticing. Congressman Jamie Raskin is making sure of it. In a fiery speech, he cut through the noise and laid bare the truth. He exposed how Trump's DOJ is shielding violent criminals, punishing lawmakers, and betraying the very officers who protected democracy. He called out Speaker Johnson's cowardice, the refusal to even honor police officers with a plaque. He made it clear that MAGA isn't about justice, it's about revenge and blind loyalty. And this at its core is Trumpism. Reward criminal loyalty, punish lawful dissent. Enrich the loyal few, betray the public good, wrap it all in patriotic slogans and pretend it's for the people. But it's not populism, it's corruption, draped in red, white and blue. And that's why voices like Raskin's matter more than ever, because he isn't afraid to call it what it is. He isn't afraid to say the system is broken and that it's being weaponized not by Joe Biden, as Trump loves to claim, but by Trump himself. Think about the absurdity. Trump whines constantly about being the victim of a weaponized government. He insists the system is out to get him. But in reality, he's the one bending the Department of Justice into a personal weapon, aimed at silencing oversight and rewarding insurrectionists. And MAGA, they stay silent. The same crowd that screams about free speech suddenly has nothing to say when dissenters are targeted, when members of Congress are indicted for doing their jobs, when real heroes are denied recognition. Because at the end of the day, MAGA has no consistent values, only loyalty to Trump. That's why this fight matters. If truth-tellers like Jamie Raskin are silenced, who will defend democracy when it's under attack from within? If oversight is criminalized and violence is celebrated, what future does America really have? This isn't about partisanship, it's about whether the law serves the people or whether it serves one man and his movement. So now it's up to all of us to keep the fire burning. To speak out when they try to rewrite history, to stand with those who tell the truth, even when it's unpopular, To refuse to let corruption masquerade as patriotism, because once the truth is gone, everything else follows. If you believe in calling out corruption, if you believe in standing up for democracy, then don't just watch. Be part of this. Hit that like button, subscribe for more, and drop a comment to show that you're not staying silent. Stay vigilant, stay strong, and stay loud, because this fight is far from over.